Okay, the goal for this video is to look at the review for Unit 8, which is writing linear equations. I'm not going to go through each one of the problems. My goal is to do a couple, one or two from each section, and then the ones that I don't do, I'll simply put the answers up so you can check your work. Numbers 1 through 7, we're simply finding the slope. Make sure you read the question carefully, do what the question's asking for and nothing more. Between 2 points, we're using the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in this case, it would be negative 3 minus 6 over 6 minus negative 5, giving us negative 9 over positive 11 as the slope for number 1. Number 2, you should get positive 3 once you simplify. Number 3, you're going to get undefined. Remember that if the 0 is in the denominator, it's undefined, whereas in number 4, the 0 is in the numerator, so the answer is simply 0. If you get to the test and you can't remember, just plug it in your calculator. If you do a number divided by 0 in your calculator, it will give you an error message, and that will tell you that it's undefined. If you do 0 divided by a number, it will simply tell you 0. For number 5, we want to find the slope here of this line. In standard form, it does not give us the slope, so we need to convert it to slope-intercept. So we're going to add x to both sides, giving us 4y equals x plus 8. Divide everything by 4. Gives us y equals, put a 1 in front of the x, so I have 1/4 x plus 2. Make sure you answer the question. The question wants the slope. The slope is the number in front of x. For number 6, y equals 6 is a horizontal line, therefore the slope should be 0. And in number 7, this is point slope form, so the slope is located in front of the parentheses, simply negative 2/5. Moving on to the next section here, writing an equation from a graph. In this case, we want to use the form y equals mx plus b. Using that form, we need two pieces of information, the first being the y-intercept, or b. In this case, it's positive 1. Next, we find a second point. We calculate the slope. In this case, it's negative 1/4 because it's going down 1 over 4, or the line's going downhill. From there, we're simply going to use our equation and plug in the values for m and b. So in this case, it's negative 1/4 for m. So y equals negative 1/4 x plus 1. Number 9, you should have y equals 1/2 x minus 4. In number 10, we've got a vertical line. It does not have a slope, it's undefined. Therefore, we cannot use y equals mx plus b. When you have a vertical line, it's simply x equals, and then you look for the value where it crosses the x-axis. In this case, it's 4. So number 10 should be x equals 4. Number 11, you should have y equals negative 5 x plus 3. You could also write this as negative 5 over 1 since it's the slope. Number 12, you've got a horizontal line, so it would be y equals negative 5. And then in 13, your b value is 0. And then your slope is simply negative 1 over 1. So when you write your equation, you would have y equals negative 1 over 1x plus 0, which is technically correct, but we could also simplify it, and it would just be simply y equals negative 1x or simply negative x. Both are correct answers. Number 4, we're shading all of the statements that apply to the given graph. So this blue line, first thing we notice is it's horizontal. We should know that for a horizontal line, the slope is 0. It is a function because it passes the vertical line test. And then referring back to what we did in problem number 12, if it's a horizontal line, it should be y equals. So the equation would be y equals to 3. Moving on, number 15, circle all the statements that do not apply to the equation y equals negative 2/5 x plus 3. So real quick, does it cross the y-axis at 3? Yes, it does. It has a y-intercept of 3. So that does apply. It rises from left to right, while the slope is negative, so it does not rise from left to right, so that does not apply. Does it have a slope of 3? No, it does not have a slope of 3. It has a slope of negative 2/5. We've already said it crosses the y-axis at 3, so it can't cross the y-axis at negative 2/5. And then it does fall from left to right. So make sure you read the question carefully. We're circling the ones that do not apply. Here, number 16 through 27, most of these we're actually going to write in point slope form, which we have to remember is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's jump down here and look at number 19 real quick. This is an easy one. We've got the slope, which will be our m, and we've got x1, y1. So the equation would simply be y plus 2, because remember we'd be subtracting the negative 2, therefore changing it to plus, equals 2/3. Once again, we're subtracting the negative 3, so it'd be x plus 3. If you look at 17, 17 is unique because it has an undefined slope. Remember that an undefined slope is a vertical line, which means it's x equals, in this case, simply x equals -1. If you look at the left side, we have 2 points. So we have an x1, y1, x2, y2. First thing we need to do is find the slope, similar to what we did in the first set of problems. So here we've got -3 minus -7 over 0 minus 5, which gives us, whoops, that's not right. -3 minus -7 minus the negative turns into a plus, so it ends up with being 4 over -5 as our slope. From there, we're just going to plug in our values. I'm going to use x1, y1. So y minus a -7 turns into +7 equals -4/5 times x minus 5. You could also use the second point, in which case you would have had y plus 3 equals -4/5 times x plus 0. Moving right along, number 18. Here, when you find your slope, you get a slope that's undefined. So referring back to problem number 17, if it's an undefined slope, it's simply x equals. Here, if you look at both points, you have the same x value. So in both cases, it's x equals -3. Remember that undefined slope, that's your key that it's a unique situation. So it's simply going to be x equals. For number 20, you should get a slope of 1/2. So you would have y minus 2 equals, -1/2. And x minus 1. Or using the second point, you would have had y minus 6 equals -1/2 times x plus 7. 21 also has a slope of -1/2. Here you would have y, it's 0, so it doesn't matter whether we write plus or minus. I tend to write plus 0, but it's the same either way. So y plus 0 equals -1/2 times x plus 6. Number 22, you should get a slope of 7. So we would have y minus 1 equals 7 times x minus 4. Or you could have y minus 8 equals 7 times x minus 5. Number 23, your slope is 0. So in point slope form, it would be y plus 7 equals 0 times x minus 1. Or if you remember that the slope of 0 is a horizontal line, simply y equals a number. So in this case, you could also write it simply as y equals -7. Both answers are correct. I would accept both for full credit on the test. Number 24, we're going to start by finding the slope, which gives us a slope of 6/5. Let's work this one out really quick just so you can see it. -18 minus -6. The reason I'm working this one out is because there's a lot of negatives involved. It's important to watch your negatives, pay close attention. Make sure if you have a double negative, you are adding. So you end up with -12 over -10. Simplify that to get 6/5. And then when you write your equation, you're going to have y plus 6, and I'm using the first point here. Y plus 6 equals 6/5 times x plus 2. The reason you have pluses there, plus 6 and plus 2, is that you would be subtracting a negative 6 as y1 and a negative 2 as x1. You could also write it with the second point. You'd have y plus 18 equals 6/5 times x plus 12. Number 25, it's a little bit different. We don't have a slope and a point. We've got a slope in the y-intercept. So if you remember, the y-intercept is b. So here it's actually easier to put it in slope-intercept form because we have an m and we have a b. So it's simply by equals 8x minus 2. Or you could recognize that this point, this y-intercept, could be written as 0, negative 2. And then using that point, you could write it as y plus 2 equals 8 times x plus 0. Once again, both would be counted as fully correct on the test. Number 26, you end up getting a slope of 0. So just like number 25, you could write it both ways. Sorry, not 25. Let me backtrack for a second. Not 25. 23. That already had a slope of 0. So you could write it simply as y equals negative 4. Or you could write it in point slope form, and it might look something like this. Y plus 4 equals 0 times x minus 2. Or using the second point, you'd have y plus 4 equals 0 times x plus 1. 3 different answers, all would be correct on the test. And finally, 27, y plus 5 equals negative 1 times x minus 2. Moving on, number 33, choose all the equations that contain both points 3, 4, and 7, 9. I'll look at my 4 point slopes first. Here we've got a y value of 4 and x value of 7. Doesn't match our point, so it can't be that one. Here I've got a y value of 4 and an x value of 3. That matches that point there, so this could be one equation. A y value of 9 and an x value of 3. That doesn't match up. And then a y value of 9 and an x value of 7. That matches that point. And I've also got these two in slope-intercept form. So I'm simply going to plug a value in. So exactly, I could plug in 3. 5 over 4 times 3 plus 31 over 4. Plug all that in. And I get a y value of 4, which matches the point. So this could also be a solution. If I plug in 3 to this one, I do not get 4. And it would also work for 7 and for 9. Next, 34, match the following equations that represent the same line. So here you're converting from point slope to slope intercept. So you distribute, in this case getting 5x minus 60, add 1, we get y equals 5x minus 59. So we'd have this equation matches that equation. Doing this over again, y minus 9 equals 5x minus 50. Adding 9 to both sides gives us 5x minus 41. So we've got this matches this, and then by process of elimination, those two should match. Our final target, parallel and perpendicular. So it could be parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Here I've got two slopes, both are the same. So same slope means they are parallel. Number 36, I've got a slope of 2 and negative 2. These are neither. They are not perpendicular because they're not opposite fractions. They're not reciprocals of one another. And they can't be parallel because they're different signs. Here, number 37, I know the slope of the first line is 1/3, but I don't know the slope of the second. So I need to convert it to slope-intercept form. And in doing so, I get the equation y equals 3x minus 6. So I've got a slope of 3 and a slope of 1/3. They are reciprocals, however, they are the same sign. So, once again, these would be neither. Moving to the final page. Write an equation for the line that's parallel and that passes through the point -3, 1. So we have a point here. It means we want to write this equation in point slope form. We've got the x1 and the y1. We don't have m. To find m, we need to use this right here. If it's parallel, it means it should have the same slope. So my m would simply be 4. So my equation would be y minus 1 equals 4 times x plus 3. Remember, once again, it's plus 3 here because we're subtracting the -3. Same type of problem here. We got a point, x1, y1. So y minus 2 equals m times x plus 4. Our slope comes from this. If it's perpendicular, it needs to be the opposite of that slope. So the opposite of positive 4 would be -1/4. So our equation would end up being y minus 2 equals -1/4 times x plus 4. And then finally, which two lines are perpendicular? So here I've got 2/5 and -2/5, opposite signs, but they're not reciprocal, so they can't be perpendicular. Here I've got -5/2, so line P and line J cannot be perpendicular. Even though they are reciprocals, they are the same sign. So it ends up being line O and line J, because 2/5 and -5/2 are opposites. So therefore, those two lines are perpendicular. Hopefully that helps. Make sure you are studying for the test. Come to class prepared, ready to go. As always, you can rewind, look back if you need to go back over a question again. Best of luck.